As someone who was born in Victoria, went to school in Kingston, studied abroad in Asia, and worked both in Calgary and Toronto, there's definitely a ton of differences amongst all these cities. But in today's video, we're gonna look at Calgary versus Toronto. So we're gonna evaluate these cities based on these 5 key metrics: cost of living, activities to do, job opportunities, people and culture, and then finally we'll talk a little bit about the climate. So just for context, I actually lived in Calgary for almost 2 years, and then I've been living in Toronto since April 2022. Definitely stay until the end to figure out which city is best for you. Drop a like if you enjoy this video, as well as hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. So when we look at cost of living, right off the top in Toronto, you're gonna be paying 13% on anything that you buy from HST, while in Calgary, there's only a 5% sales tax. It might not seem like a big deal, but it definitely adds up over time. The next thing with cost of living is rent. The average 1-bedroom apartment downtown costs $2,300, while in Calgary, it's only $1,700. And when you think about buying a property, you can find a home in Calgary for in the mid 500s, maybe even the 400s. While in Toronto, the average cost of property is $1.1 million almost. Also, if you're buying property, in Ontario, you actually have to pay land transfer tax, which can be anywhere from $10,000, $20,000, or even $30,000. While in Calgary, there's actually no land transfer tax at all. So just another nice addition. Transportation, on the other hand, I would say goes to Toronto. Calgary is a highway city, so you definitely need a vehicle if you want to travel around, especially if you want to enjoy the amenities that the city has to offer, like going for hikes in the mountains on the weekends. Whereas in Toronto, especially if you're living downtown Toronto, I think the public transit system's actually pretty good. So you definitely don't need a car. Overall, cost of living in Toronto is 36% more than in Calgary. The next category we're gonna look at is activities to do. So how I would kind of overall describe it is, in Calgary, there's just a lot more outdoor activities to do. So you can go hiking in the summers, it's beautiful. You can go skiing in the winters. There's a lot more parks available, tons of great skating spots. And also they have 2 rivers, which you can kind of float down or do various activities throughout the summer. While Toronto definitely has way better entertainment activities. A lot more bars, clubs, tons of different concerts throughout the year. Obviously, it's a bigger city, so it just attracts more talent. Toronto definitely has better restaurants than Calgary, probably just because there's more competition. As well as you can find basically any food from any ethnicity in Toronto. Also, if you're into sports, Toronto has more sports teams as well and a lot bigger games. And yes, I'm not gonna forget to mention Calgary Stampede, which if you haven't been, it is insane. That's definitely giving Calgary some bonus points on the board. The next category we're gonna go into is people and culture. So Toronto is definitely more of an individualistic city. What I mean by that is people are kind of out for themselves, on the go, in a rush, not necessarily the most friendly to strangers, kind of on edge. And it makes sense, there are some aspects of Toronto that aren't necessarily the safest, so I understand why people are kind of on edge. But at the same time, that being said, Toronto is so multicultural. It's one of the most multicultural cities in the world, I would say. You're definitely able to find people that you connect with and people that you're friends with in the city, just because there's so many different groups of people. While in Calgary, people are a little bit more laid back, relaxed. It's more of that help a neighbor out kind of vibe. It's definitely smaller and it's a newer city. So I think there's definitely that young, exciting energy to it. So that's kind of how I would describe the differences. In terms of culture, Toronto definitely wins. And in terms of people, I would say Calgarians are a lot more friendly. Next category is job opportunities. Calgary obviously has been an oil and gas based economy historically, but they are diversifying. After COVID hit, obviously oil and gas kind of tanked. A lot of the office space in Calgary actually freed up. A lot of tech companies and new businesses are moving to Calgary to expand. So I kind of think of Calgary as the Texas of Canada. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities, and Calgary's slowly diversifying, although they obviously still depend heavily on oil and gas. Toronto, on the other hand, I would say one of the best places in Canada to start a career. There's tons of massive companies that are headquartered in Toronto. It's a very diverse economy. It continues to grow, and there's just a lot of opportunity for advancement within the city. The average income between both cities is relatively the same, although I will give Toronto the edge in terms of job opportunities. The last topic we're going to talk about is climate. Calgary definitely has a wider range of climate than Toronto. So Calgary has super hot summers, but also really cold winters. So if you can survive the -20 winters, -30 winters, good for you. Whereas in Toronto, it's definitely a lot milder. You're still gonna get snow in the winter, but the temperature is definitely not unbearable. So Calgary or Toronto? Well, I think it really depends on what your goals are, kind of where you are at in terms of your life. In my opinion, I think Calgary is the best city in Canada to get ahead in. Your purchasing power in Calgary is so much higher than the other cities. So I think it's just a really good opportunity to get ahead, save, and build. Toronto, it's so hard to save money. You might get paid slightly higher, but just the cost of living and everything kind of adds up into you. So it's hard to kind of escape that. That being said, if you're more career oriented, you're looking to climb the corporate ladder, you want to enjoy the amenities that a big city has to offer, and you're willing to pay a little bit of a higher price, Toronto is definitely the city for you. Well, if you're really looking to save money, you're more of an outdoorsy person, you can tolerate the -20 temperatures, Calgary is definitely more the city for you. Really hope you gained some value from this video. I've lived and worked in both these cities, but this is just my personal experience, so take that with a grain of salt. But if you did find this video helpful, definitely drop a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Hang in there, we're getting close to the summer, and you know the summer is gonna be big in Toronto. So with that being said, I will see you in my next video. Peace.